Hi, this is Easy Gains and a conspiracy theory about burning fuels leading to warming. Easy gains because some profits are easier than others. Aren't some people older than others? Aren't some people smarter than others? Aren't some people braver than others? How about this? Aren't some companies older than others? Well, even if a company may not be very old, it can still work very well with smart people, especially if those people are brave, too. Back in 2003, when many old companies were ignoring the risks of the global lending market, including the subprime mortgage market, as well as ignoring the geological realities of things like oil and natural gas and coal, some people were smart enough to look closely at the behavior of investors worldwide, plus brave enough to admit the obvious. One of the most obvious things is that fossil fuels are finite resources. Another obvious thing was that if humans burn more and more fuel for decade after decade, then eventually there will be much less of those fuels. For economies dependent on oil, that dependency could get very expensive, and not just in terms of dollars and money, but also in terms of social stability, human welfare, quality of life, and even national security. Another obvious thing is that all burning of fossil fuels might heat things up a bit, right? Still, lots of people chose to argue, and still may choose to argue about things like the possible causes of global warming, with some activists maybe protesting against sunlight and others protesting against empty oil wells. I'm obviously being facetious here. But arguing about it is different, especially when there's blame, an element of blame, is different than proposing new actions and taking new actions and inviting and requesting people to participate in discussions, and like calm, civil discussions, and then to participate in actions again, maybe calm and civil actions. So smarter people might actually predict in advance that burning huge amounts of fuel worldwide might result in a measurable rise in heat. However, it can take a lot of bravery to stop arguing about who to blame and admit that billions of people are involved in the global economy. By the way, the global economy is just a phrase that actually means the actions of a whole bunch of humans. The global economy is not something that happens to us, it's something that we do. Anyway, in early 2003, I published an article about the future of the global lending market, which just means the lending and borrowing of a whole bunch of people. I specified in particular the increasing risk in the real estate market of countries like the US, which had become so dependent on borrowing. 90% of many real estate purchases were financed, and then 95% of the purchase price would be financed, and then 98 and 99, and then cash back at close, meaning 100% financing of the real estate purchases. So I also forecast a continuing surge in global prices of commodities like oil and gold, contrasting that continuing surge in prices with the diminishing opportunity for gains in the US stock market, which did go up, but not nearly as much as gold and not anywhere close to as much as oil. In 2004, I published The Real US Deficit, Oil. In 2005, I published Worth Its Weight in Oil, noting the practical priority of oil over all other global markets, or at least all other global commodities, as evidenced by the price increase of over 1,200% from 1999 to 2008 of oil, while other commodities of lesser current importance, such as gold, went up only by a few 100% in that time period. So I took the old phrase, worth its weight in gold, and replaced gold with the commodity that everyone who has ever waited in line 5 minutes to get gas knows is far more important than gold: oil. Most people also know that oil is the source not only of gasoline and kerosene and so forth, but also plastic and many pharmaceuticals and pesticides. So, by 2005, worth its weight in oil was something I thought would be a good title. And then I also had the domino oil effect. So you use the term domino, and then I talked about the domino oil effect, where oil prices would surge up and burst the bubble of the U.S. stock market and some European stock markets, UK, EU, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, worth its weight in oil was the title of that piece. As years went by, myself and others continued publishing articles and giving lectures about the easily predictable future of things like oil prices, the U.S. real estate market, the U.S. stock market, and even things like the fact that the burning of fuels can result in the melting of ice, as in the case of oceans rising faster and faster year after year. In addition to lots of publications and lectures, I recorded a video in 2006 and uploaded it to the internet, which detailed the sequence of events that would predictably result in the collapsing of major financial institutions like banks, brokerages, and insurance companies. In 2008, that precise sequence of events was frequently referenced in the mainstream media as surprising. Major banks in the U.S., Europe, and elsewhere were facing similar troubles to those faced in similar circumstances, such as in Japan in the 1990s. Of course, in Japan in the 1980s, many smart forecasters had been brave enough to publicly forecast what developed in the following years, too. As often happens with unpopular forecasts or frightening forecasts, when those precise developments which had been forecast did arise in the 1990s in Japan, the mainstream media in Japan called those developments surprises. Soon the public poured their hopes into promising reforms, and then desperate rescue packages, and then eventually a string of politicians with shorter and shorter periods between receiving public confidence at first and then later being blamed as incompetent or even as traitors. Some things are easily predictable. For instance, burning fuel raises the temperature. Also, smart people recognize what is obvious. But perhaps only smart people that are also brave would be willing to accept responsibility for adapting to what is obvious. Others may be surprised by the surge of heat in the summertime or in the direct sunlight at noon. Oh my gosh, the heat. And then they may look for someone to blame for the surprising heat, such as certain politicians. In fact, that may just be the first stage of adapting. Making personal adjustments may come eventually for them, such as embracing the most obvious opportunities to make easy gains. So, aren't some people smarter than others? Further, aren't some people braver than others? Well, aren't some results more valuable to you than others? Easy gains, because some profits are easier than others. Thank you for listening and watching. This has been Easy Gains, a conspiracy theory about burning fuels leading to warming. If you have a comment or a request for a consultation, you're welcome to let me know.